Hello, welcome. We are back for the Wednesday, August 2nd MLB DFS Slate breakdown. Yesterday's was a super fun slate. Today I think will be similar. We got a good stretch of games here to go over, and we got baseball all day, so Wednesdays are just a good days. All right, before we get into it, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to our video as it helps us a ton to keep giving free content out for everybody. And if you're not already, come join us. Come be a part of the LineStar family. Only $29.99 gets you access to all of our props, all of our DFS. Get involved in the chat and in the community. It's a fun time. All right, now we're going to get into the fun. First, we're going to start at the perfect lineups from yesterday on both FanDuel and DraftKings. And then we're going to get into the winning lineups on both sites, followed by pitching ownership on both sites and the stacks to consider. All right. So perfect lineup on DraftKings. We got Heaney. We got Valdez. Then a 5-man Cubs stack in the perfect lineup. That's kind of what happens when you put up 20. Gunnar Henderson. Baltimore put up 13. Taylor had a nice little game. Harris had a good game. It was quite the slate here with almost 314 points. Real big day for fantasy DFS. And then our winning lineup, Daladino, took it home by 7.5 points. He really crushed the mish for first place here. And he had a 5-man Cub stack, 2-man Dodger stack. He had that pitching combo that was in the perfect lineup as well. And then a one-off with Oakland, who was major leverage because everybody had Lance Lynn yesterday, as Lance Lynn was a super high owned. Now, if you look, we got real low ownership on this lineup, and there was real big upside. You know, we talked about yesterday how I thought the Dodgers were way too low owned. They were in a great spot. I talked about how the Cubs, I really liked them. I did not trust Ben Lively. The weather was warm. The ball just tends to really fly a lot more in Chicago when the weather is warm. So we really got to attack those spots when we can, especially when we see stacks going under-owned. So it was a good lineup. Congrats to Daladino. You got it done. Now let's check out the FanDuel lineup here. All right, so Andrew Heaney, then a 4-man Cubs, 2-man Baltimore with Soto and Harris kind of mixed in there. So a nice 4-2-1-1 build. Good stuff here. And the winning lineup, 340.1. So still 49 points off the perfect lineup here, but Weasel 8 really crushed it here with Lance Lynn. He did enough. He had 3 earned runs, so he still qualified for the, quality start and got the win. So that really helped him kind of still propel himself up into the top here. But he just nailed it. He had the 4-man Baltimore stack, 4-man Cubs stack. Really hard to compete when you have 2 teams just go absolutely nuts like this, and super low ownership. And when you have 2 low-owned stacks like that, why not take a chalky pitcher that, everybody's projecting pretty well here. So, and if you could see, he won by, almost 34 points. So he absolutely crushed everybody. Really didn't matter what pitcher he got just because he nailed those 2 stacks so well. So congrats to Weasel. Good job, and let's take them out today. All right, now ownership wise, let's get over to DraftKings, get my ugly mug out of the way. All right, so we got Garrett Cole coming in as the highest owned pitcher at 37%. Now, Cole's a great pitcher. I can't really say it any other way. Tampa Bay does strike out 24% versus righties. Tampa Bay has been able to hit him a little bit. in the past. If we look at what he's done so far, Tampa Bay has hit him in both starts this year. However, he got the better of them last year. So I would say probably he is more likely to do better today than he has in his other two starts. With that being said, Tampa Bay is a very good offense. LineStar projection doesn't like him that much. He's 10.8K. I don't feel the need to chase the chalk on him today. With that being said, there's not, a ton of pitching today. But Cole is one that I am considering fading. Kodai Senga, look, he's versus this Royals lineup that just isn't that good. They do hit righties a little bit better than lefties, but they're striking out 23%. And Senga has been the pitcher we thought he would be recently. 32% K rate, 2.75 FIP, excellent StatCast data. He's looking really good right now. Solid combined K rate of 26%. Has a projection over Garrett Cole at less salary. So I think he's very interesting today. We'll see how, as the day goes on, ownership kind of affects him. But I think he's in a decent spot. The one thing I do have to bring up, he is kind of like how Lance Lynn is, where when they're on, they're really on, but they can be a little bit inconsistent. So with that, it makes me a little, it makes it a little harder for me to follow the chalk. Now, if I'm on DraftKings, I'm absolutely not playing Cole and Senga together. With that being said, Senga would be my chalk piece I would rather than Cole. All right, Tony Gonsolin versus Oakland. Oakland got 3 runs on the Dodgers yesterday. They absolutely could do that again. And Gonsolin is just having a terrible year so far. 4.3 FIP over his last 20, 5.58 over his last 5. Now, last year Gonsolin had a very low ERA, always had a higher FIP, but it seems like that is finally coming in to bite him. Last year we talked about a lot where I just didn't think he was as good as he was, as he kept performing, and seems like that regression monster has caught him. Now, him being higher owned and really not that great this year makes it real hard for me to follow. Plus 37% owned, or 37% hard contact, a lot of barrel balls. This Oakland team, while it's not good, they can put up a couple runs, and because he's such a low strikeout guy, you really need him to, limit runs big time. So I don't love Gonsolin. He's cheap enough that he kind of makes sense, but I'm probably not going there. I would rather pay up for, say, a Dylan Cease at 8,400. Look, our projection for him isn't that great, but he's been really good lately. 2.46 FIP, strikeout 26%, combined K rate of 24%. He's been very good versus Texas in the past, and he's averaging 23% more fantasy points away. So I think there's a lot to like here. He has very good, games versus Texas. I think it's a very interesting kind of slightly lower owned option here. Next, we got Logan Webb, 23% owned versus the Diamondbacks. I don't love going against the Diamondbacks. I think they're just a good offense that somehow just pesters you to death. They got speed, they got power, and seem to keep putting it together. The one thing we do need to bring up, it's cool in San Francisco today. So with that, maybe he, performs fairly well. Plus, he's much better at home. And with it being a divisional game, it just means a lot more here. All right, next we got Kikuchi versus Baltimore. So we've talked about Kikuchi a lot all year long. Now, he is a pitcher that is very good, has real good highs. His pitch stuff is extremely good, but he is an inconsistent guy. So LineStar is really liking him today versus Baltimore. He has been decent versus Baltimore. He has some solid K upside. So I think you have to like that, but Baltimore does hit lefties well. And they've done well versus Kikuchi in the past. 277 average, 76 plate attempts, high ISO, 9 home runs and 76 plate attempts. So I don't totally know how I feel about Kikuchi. I may have a little because he's, low owned and has that upside, but this is a situation that I think you could play both sides of the game because very easily he could give up, 2 home runs, 4 runs, 5 runs and 4 innings, something like that. And then if you get to that bullpen, who knows? A lot of lower owned pitchers here to consider today. So Joe Ryan, he's priced a little lower than Garrett Cole, similar projection. There's upside in this the K rate here, combined K rate of 30. He hasn't been that great lately, but he has been good, all season long. His StatCast data is a little sketchy here. But we did mention, this game, which was at home last week versus Seattle. Weather was really warm. The wind was blowing out. And I said, look, he's going to probably give up a couple home runs with this weather. It's a total different situation now. The wind is blowing in and should limit some home runs here, even though he, gives up a lot of fly balls and a decent amount of hard contact. McClanahan versus the Yankees. McClanahan hasn't been great lately, but his price is really coming down. So I think he is kind of interesting here, especially at, only 9,300, 18-point fantasy projection, and no owned. And I mean, I'm really only worried about Judge in this Yankees lineup too. So if they can just get around Judge, then they're in a good spot. One thing is the Yankees have hit McClanahan decent in the past. They struggled last year versus him, but kind of beat him up pretty good earlier this season. So I think this one could go either way. He's a really good pitcher, and I tend to side with the history of a guy being a really good pitcher and his price being down as something that I like. All right, Grayson Rodriguez. His last time out, we were all over him. He scored 19 at 6,300. Great value there. He's still pretty low here. And we talked about last time how he's changed his arm slot and his K rate has came up a little bit. So that's absolutely still in factor, but it's a very tough matchup versus the Blue Jays. So don't know what to do there. All right, now let's get over to FanDuel. All right, so Garrett Cole, highest owned. Tony Gonsolin next, then Dylan Cease and Kodai Senega both coming in. Then you say Kikuchi. So McClanahan is cheap here on FanDuel too, so that is interesting to me. Joe Ryan is very interesting to me. So those are your two kind of ways to get different here on FanDuel. You could also do Grayson Rodriguez, I think. The one thing with him is, you're going to need him to be efficient. It seems like he's really kind of being held to low 90 pitch count. But he's, a very highly touted prospect and has some major upside if he really gets rolling. So I don't mind it. And he's, very cheap. I would say that I probably rather Rodriguez at his ownership than Tony Gonsolin at his ownership. So I think it's a really interesting kind of pitcher mix today on FanDuel. I think everybody's going to be chasing Garrett Cole likely, as it seems like it's the best spot. But it's also kind of an easy one to get off of. So very interesting. Now let's get some stack action going on. So, highest owned, we got the Cubbies. So, we were all about the Cubbies yesterday. Now, everybody is. They had a great game yesterday. They have some good hitting weather today, so I think that's very interesting. And then we got the Mets versus the Royals, who we don't have a starting pitcher yet. It's like 90 degrees in Kansas City, so we got some nice temps. However, the wind is blowing in. I think this Mets team is fine to stack. I don't love it, don't hate it. Dakota Hudson versus the Twins. I think the Twins are very interesting. They're cheap, so you can really kind of fit in those higher price pitchers if you want. I love Cincinnati, especially if the Cubs are going to be this high owned. Pivot to Cincinnati for a little less ownership. Smiley hasn't been great yesterday, and they got a lot of righties that could probably hit Smiley pretty well. Dodgers. I think Dodgers are in another really, really good spot like they were yesterday. Hogan Harris isn't great. He lets a lot of guys on base. And Dodgers is not a team that you want to allow that to happen versus here. So they're in a good spot. Now let's get to projection. Dodgers, Cubs, Mets, Cincinnati, Baltimore. All ones we talked about. Baltimore, let's touch on a little bit more here. Kikuchi's a really good pitcher, but he's inconsistent. And when his stuff isn't fully on, he gets hammered. So I don't mind taking some shots at Baltimore today. The offense has been good lately. They put up 13 runs yesterday. I think there's a lot to like there. All right, and now let's check out the value side. All right, we got Royals. As we said, nice hitting weather there. The one thing, it is Kodai Senga, who has been super good lately. Mets are cheap. Oakland is cheap. And look, Gonsolin hasn't been good. So I think this Oakland stack makes a lot of sense, especially if Gonsolin's going to be higher owned. You get some nice leverage, and they have some guys that have some power, have some speed, can score fantasy points in a lot of different ways. St. Louis, they got some hitters, and Joe Ryan hasn't been great lately, so that's a nice little leverage stack there at, pretty much no ownership here. So very interesting slate we have here. A lot of different ways you can go. And ceiling plays, Cubs, Dodgers, Arizona. No surprise there. Arizona is against Logan Webb, and Logan Webb is way better at home. So I don't love that, but the Diamondbacks offense seems to be able to figure it out, day in and day out, no matter what. So I definitely think they're a little bit interesting here. So, all right, guys, that will do it for us today. Good luck today. I will be back once again later this afternoon with another more of a strategy type show, as Ryan is still out of town. And so I'm going to do another strategy show to help him out a little bit. And we'll see you back here in a bit, guys. Have a good one. Bye.